Hey, how you doing? Today I want to talk about value engineering in the design and construction of your project. I'm going to get into the definition and also a couple of examples to show you how you can save money and meet your budget on your construction project. So today's about value engineering, saving money. Let's get started. The definition and main objective of value engineering is to look at alternate materials, methods, and components while still maintaining the quality, the value, and the functionality of your construction project. Now, you'll see value engineering in every type of project, from small renovation of houses to custom homes to industrial, commercial, institutional. You'll see them in highways and bridges. I'm going to get into examples on a water treatment plant that we did where we used value engineering. Now, you can use value engineering at the preliminary design review with your architect or engineer. You can come up with some value engineering items at that time from your architect, engineer, or your value engineers, or your construction manager or contractor. You can also do it at the preliminary design sketch review time and start coming up with ideas to look at different materials, methods, and components that may help you save costs on your project. And you can also do it at the final stage of construction drawings. I've done several projects where the owner came in and had a final set of drawings, and then we went through and did value engineering analysis on those final set of drawings. My career started back in the early 1980s after I graduated college, and I was involved in a lot of projects that we implemented value engineering. However, I wasn't involved with a professional value engineering team until the early 1990s, about 30 years ago. I was part of a construction management team that built a $25 million water treatment plant outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, near Salzburg. It was called the George R. Sweeney Water Treatment Plant. And we had contracted with the Westmoreland County Water Authority to build the plant. It was a 25 million gallons per day, and their initial budget was $1 million per a million gallons per day, so thus the $25 million price tag. Now, Westmoreland County got a loan from the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Loan Department, or PennVest. However, one of their stipulations was that any project over $5 million that they loaned out had to go through a professional value engineering analysis. So we, as the construction managers, we contracted with a professional value engineering team out of Washington, D.C. They were comprised of two of them. One was a structural value engineer, and the other was more of a plant processing pipe value engineer. Both of them had been in the design of water treatment plants, and both of them were members of the Society of American Value Engineers, or SAVE. They reviewed the completed set of engineering drawings of the water treatment plant, and they came up with 163 value engineering items. I have the original list from that project, and it was about 15 pages of value engineering items. So we met with them and the engineer of record out of Harrisburg, and then the owner, Westmoreland County Water Authority, and discussed all the 163 items. And from those 163, we whittled it down to about half of them that we were going to incorporate into the bid packages and the purchase orders. We had 12 bid packages and 17 purchase orders that we went out to bid for. After the bids were received, the project cost was around $26 million, and the value engineering alternates produced a savings of around $1.5 million. So we again met with the owner and the engineer of record and the value engineerist, and we reviewed each value engineering items and their savings, and they ultimately accepted around $1 million in reduced costs. Thus, we were able to meet their budget of $25 million for the construction of this water treatment plant. Let me give you a brief example of two of the value engineering items that were indicative of the 163 value engineering suggestions by the value engineer. The structural value engineer reviewed the design of the massive underground concrete water tank, as you see on the left-hand side here, and You can see the underground finished product there. The tank was 200 foot long by 50 foot wide by 20 foot high. And the design showed a 3-foot base with reinforcing steel and 3-foot sides, which tapered up to 1'6", as you see. The depth of the base and the thickness of the walls was to allow for the water tank to be built freestanding and then filled with water before the backfilling of the dirt around it. The structural value engineer suggested that the base and the walls could be reduced in size, and he provided structural calculations and schematic drawings confirming that the compacted backfilled earth that surrounds the tank would help support the tank and the water within it. His calculations and redesign showed a 2-foot concrete base in lieu of the 3-foot original design and 2-foot sides in lieu of the 3-foot sides. We estimated about a savings around $200,000 for the project. So we met with the owner and the engineer of record and the value engineers on this particular item, and we wanted to know what the engineer of record, why his design was such. And he came back and said, yeah, we could do that. However, our specification calls for us to build the tank freestanding and then fill the tank with water and then wait 30 days to see if there's any leaks through the concrete. And so presented like that, the owners rejected that value engineering item. And so we built the structure freestanding as the specifications and drawings called for, and we filled the tank with water, and we waited about 30 days. We had a small leak on the south side of the structure, and we patched it with some high-strength grout, and we waited another 30 days. We didn't have any problems after that. The other value engineering suggestion was the equalization basin tank. It was a concrete structure, and you'll see it on the upper left-hand side of the photo there. And the completed structure was underground. This underground concrete structure was 50 foot long by 50 foot wide by 20 foot in height, and had sloped concrete as you see in the interior. Now, an equalization basin, it receives the backwash water from the cleaning of the clarifier tanks. The clarifiers clean the reservoir water in their filters, and after the 7th time of filtering the water, they backwash the filters to remove the waste particles. Then they pump this backwash water into the equalization basin. Then they drain the water out of the basin, and the waste particle sludge material that is left over is then sprayed down the slope of the concrete. At the base of the tank, they shovel out the sludge material and take it to a sludge drying bed. According to the value engineering team, if they reduced the slope of the concrete in the basin, they could reduce the overall design of the basin sides. And we estimated a cost savings of $30,000 with this redesign. The engineers of record countered and stated that their design of the higher slope would make it easier for the cleaning crew to spray the sludge material down the slope concrete. And with the reduced slope, the cleaning crew would probably need to go into the basin and squeegee the sludge off the slope concrete and out of the basin. The owners accepted this value engineering cost-saving item and also accepted that they may incur additional maintenance costs in the cleaning of this basin. This experience with these professional value engineers was eye-opening to me as how they dissected a multi-million-dollar water treatment plant and came up with 163 value engineering suggestions while still maintaining the functionality of the water treatment plant. And as you go through the value engineering suggestions, they went through the whole gambit of the design, from the civil design, the incoming roadway coming up to the plant, to the structure. As we went through two of them there was a lot more structural value engineering items they came up with. Plant processing pipe, valves, clarifiers and aquifers. They wanted to look at that. They had a couple items there. The control system, they had value engineering suggestions that we implemented on that also, and the mechanical and the electrical, and then even the architectural features on the exterior of the building they had suggestions for that we incorporated into the project. So it was eye-opening to me, and since that project, I've used value engineering on all my design build projects throughout the years, and help project owners meet their budgets. It's just something, if they have a certain budget, what you don't want to have happen is you bid it out and then you're over your budget. So this has been a tool that I've used, and even on project owners that have a completed set of drawings, they bid it out and they're over the budget, but I've helped them with the value engineering analysis and got them to their budgets. Now let's get into this project, the volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi. This is the project where you've seen just recently in the news that Brett Favre has been involved with, and the controversy that's swirling about this project. And I thought this would be a good project to show where value engineering could help in this project. And the reason why I say that, Brett was involved he was like the de facto project manager, he and his wife, in getting the facility built and raising the money. And his initial estimate on this project, he had thought was around $4 million. And when the bids came in, he says in a statement here, the bids are in, and shockingly, the lowest is $6.9 million. And the architects were confident it would come in lower than what we have saved. And he says it's really frustrating. Let me give you a little backdrop on how Brett got involved in this project here. You see, his daughter played volleyball in high school, and they didn't have a volleyball center in high school, and he and his wife got together and became like the de facto project managers in building this facility and raising money. And then when she was going to go to the University of Southern Mississippi, his alma mater, he found out that the women's volleyball team had conflicts with the men's basketball and the women's basketball, scheduling conflicts over at the main gymnasium. So he thought it'd be a good idea to see if he couldn't build a facility at the college level. So he got involved with the governor of Mississippi and the athletic director at Southern Mississippi, and said, hey, he and his wife were looking at trying to build a volleyball facility over there. What do you guys think? And they thought it was a good idea. And once he got the blessing, then he became the fundraiser of the project. And he gave initially $650,000 to the project. And when he went back to the governor and the athletic director, he said, well, where can we get some money for this project? And they steered him to 2 state welfare agencies. I think when Brett and the University of Southern Mississippi's athletic department were going to build this facility, I think initially all they wanted to look at was a volleyball center. Maybe 3 courts, 1,000 seats, 2 locker rooms. But when they brought in the state welfare agency, it changed the parameters of the project. The 2 state welfare programs were able to provide $5 million to the project, to the University of Southern Mississippi's athletic department. And the way that they did it is that they got it through a federal program. It's called the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And this money was to be used for young ladies that were in the childbearing stage of their life, and they were trying to get back into the workforce, and they needed a little bit of money to get back into that workforce. They weren't supposed to use it for bricks and mortar type of projects, but they got around that, and that's kind of the controversy. I'll get in that a little bit later. But when they did that, they ended up changing the overall parameters of the project, and it now became a wellness center. When the 2 state welfare agencies got involved in the project and they had to use the federal money, you see, they had to add to the project, and that's what happened. It added to the overall square footage of the project. They ended up adding a classroom in the facility for the young ladies that come in and maybe take a class, and they added like a meeting room, conference area for them, and then the athletic department added a weight room. So this all added to the original scope of work in the project. So let's go over the timeline of this project. Brett got involved with this project in April of 2017, and by July of 2017, after the University of Southern Mississippi's athletic department got involved with the state welfare agencies, they started to produce schematic drawings on the project, and that's where he started with his initial budget of $4 million. But I think at that stage is where you want to look at bringing in somebody that has historical costs on the project, like a construction manager or a contractor in that area, that you may just negotiate some sort of fee with them, but then he could come in and try to guide you and say, okay, this is what the price is going to be at your initial stage. And then when you got with the different agencies and they had to change the parameters and add the classrooms and add the conference rooms and add the weight rooms, then he's right there with you at this preliminary design stage, is where the architect, he submits the drawings to these people and he has to change the drawings. They add scope of work. It started out maybe a 16,000 square foot facility, and now you're 28,000 square foot. So you're in September, and you kind of, if you have somebody in your back pocket, like a construction manager, has these costs, then you kind of know that you're going to need a little bit more money. And when this thing came out at $246 a square foot, you got to run with that number. That number should have been the number. You say in September, and you say, okay, I've got to raise $7 million. But at that time, he's thinking, well, maybe $5 or $6 million is all I've got to raise. But when they change that parameters, so this is where I'm saying, have a construction manager, somebody in your back pocket right there. They can come up with these value engineering suggestions, okay, in this project. I've done it myself on these size of projects, where I've talked to architects, engineers, trade contractors, suppliers, metal building companies at the preliminary design stage, and I'll come up with some items to look at. And if you look at this project here, just looking at it, maybe the pre-engineered metal building, you might be able to lower the ceiling. I don't know. Maybe the slope of the roof, you may be able to change. Maybe the front, you might be able to do something, reduce the size of that. Now, you may have to redesign that, but you spend a little bit of money there. But at that stage in September, October, November, you have a guy that has a little bit more detailed estimate so that you can know exactly where you stand, and then the value engineering items you put an estimate on too. And then that project manager or that construction manager or contractor can work with these individual trades at that time and come up with these value engineering items. And when you get closer to the final set of drawings being completed, then you can incorporate these value engineering items into the project. You may want to meet with the construction manager and the end users, say the University of Southern Mississippi and the state welfare people, and say, okay, let's just say you had 20 items that we had on the list of 20 value engineering items. Of those 20, maybe you whittle them down to 10. And those 10 you put into the bid package, the individual bid packages of the project. Now, the way I do it, and you can do it on all these projects, is you do like a construction management format, to where all of the bid packages, you see all the bid packages. And so you incorporate all of the value engineering options into these bid packages, and you can work with the individual trades, the individual suppliers like the pre-engineered metal building company, and see what you do. And you get these bids in and you put them together, and it may be that the total project comes to what we talked about, around $7 million. And you say, okay, it took me 3 or 4 months, and knowing the University of Southern Mississippi, they had to have the money in the account before they started. So you've got the time to do that. And then you also have some value engineering options that you can look at and when the bids come in. and you say it's $7 million, and let's just say the value engineering items are $500,000. So you can look at each individual value engineering item and say yay or nay on some of them. Like I said, you might want to reduce the brick on the outside, maybe I wouldn't do anything, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a beautiful facility, but that's, to have somebody in your back pocket and have some items and options to look at. What you don't want to do is at the end of the project, you get the bids and they're over what you had in the project or saved for the project. And then you say, well, I want to go back to the low bidder and let's see what he can do if we reduce some items. You're not going to get dollar for dollar on the give back on that. That's why you got to do the work at the beginning of the project and during the preliminary stage, the schematic stage, and have somebody in your back pocket. And then when the numbers come in, you guys can make a decision. So that's how I handle these types of projects. Get somebody at the beginning of the project to help you with the overall cost, the value engineering, and putting this whole thing together, and he can schedule the thing for you. So this just gives you a little different way to approach a project when you're trying to figure out how much money the overall project is and such. And let me get back into the bricks and mortar statement that I made earlier and just give you my assessment of what happened here. When Brett and the University of Southern Mississippi were trying to get funding, and these two welfare agencies came along and said, yeah, we can provide funding, they're just like me. They're bulldogs trying to raise money and get this project going, and they said, okay, it's fine, but when they found this clause here that said you couldn't use it for bricks and mortar, they're trying to work around it, and what they said that they could do was do a lease program on this. I said, we'll give you the money and we'll just say it's a lease, some sort of loophole in there that they've used possibly before. Now, if I'm like Brett and I'm a bulldog on this thing, I don't really care. If you can work it out, that's fine, okay? But in the end, the auditor comes in and says, no, you can't do that. And so, like me or Brett, and we're bulldogs and we just pushing this thing through. Well, I didn't know, okay? But I think in the end, because it's a wellness center, and it's for these young ladies in the community. Now it's a community center. It's not only for the University of Southern Mississippi. All of these young ladies or families can use it. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a prototype building for the state of Mississippi that, okay, we kind of skirted the law here a little bit. We used money maybe that we weren't supposed to. But in the end, it's a facility for these young ladies that they can use year-round to help them get back into the workforce. Maybe, like I said before, classrooms to help them. Maybe they can do resume writing, whatever they can do. But now you have a facility, and it may be, like I say, a prototype building that you can use around the state and say maybe not as big as that, but something smaller that these young ladies or these families can come in, and now they have a place to go. So in the end, in the 40 years I've done these projects, there's some projects you get and you put your heart and soul into them, and you go, at the end of them, there's just certain people that just don't appreciate what you did. But I think when it all gets settled, I think what Brett and his wife did, I think they'll appreciate what he did. So next video I'm going to get into is a custom house. It's the same format. We're going to get into the value engineering on this custom house that we did, the design, the preliminary design. I'll try to get it out in a week, and appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.